The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes you forget to breathe. All eyes were fixed on Judge Greg Mathis, who sat high upon the bench, his gavel resting lightly in hand, his gaze sharp and unflinching. Before him stood Senator John Kennedy, not as a lawmaker today, but as a man defending himself in a trial many had already written off as lost. Reporters lined the pews, cameras flashed from the corners, and tension draped itself across the room like a heavy curtain. Everyone expected Kennedy to crumble under the weight of the judge's questions. But what happened next stunned them all. From the very beginning, it was clear Judge Mathis had an agenda. His tone was pointed, his phrasing deliberate, every question designed not to seek truth, but to corner Kennedy into a contradiction. Senator Mathis began with a measured calm that disguised sharp intent. Are you telling this court that you, a man of law, stand by a decision that most experts would call reckless? The question hung in the air like a dagger. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Kennedy, however, didn't flinch. He adjusted his glasses, leaned forward slightly, and with that signature Louisiana drawl, answered, "Judge, I reckon experts have been wrong before, and if defending what's right makes me reckless, then I'll gladly wear that badge." The exchange set the tone. Mathis grew more aggressive, raising hypotheticals meant to trip Kennedy into admitting fault. Each question was sharper than the last, like a trap tightening around its prey. Yet, Kennedy refused to panic. Instead, he began turning the judge's own logic against him. When Mathis presented a twisted scenario meant to make Kennedy look inconsistent, Kennedy paused, smiled faintly, and replied, "With all due respect, Judge, you're asking me to choose between a crooked stick and a bent one. The truth is neither belongs in a man's hand. What belongs there is straight wood, plain, honest, and sturdy." The crowd murmured in approval. Even a few reporters who came prepared to write his downfall started scribbling notes with widened eyes. As the hours passed, the trial became less about the accusations and more about the clash of principles. Kennedy stood not just as a defendant but as a voice for something deeper: honesty, resilience, and the refusal to bow to intimidation. At one point, Judge Mathis tried to press him with a rhetorical trap. "So, by your logic, Senator, the law itself can be bent when convenient?" Kennedy shook his head, his voice steady but laced with fire. "No, sir. The law is meant to protect, not to play favorites. If you bend it for convenience, you break it for everyone. And I'll stand against that, even if I have to stand alone." The room erupted, not with applause. It was a courtroom after all, but with an energy so strong it could be felt. The turning point came when Kennedy asked to cross-reference the evidence himself. Many thought it was reckless, even foolish, but he walked to the table with the confidence of a man who had nothing to hide. Piece by piece, he broke down the supposed contradictions, showing not only their flaws but also the intentions behind them. "This," he said, holding up a stack of papers Judge Mathis had leaned on heavily, "isn't evidencia, it's a distraction. And distractions don't decide justice. Truth does." For the first time, Judge Mathis shifted in his seat, his composure cracking ever so slightly. The crowd sensed it. Kennedy had flipped the script. By the end of the trial, the very people who expected Kennedy to fall were on their feet, not in defiance of the judge, but in respect for a man who had shown the courage to speak truth to power. The verdict itself became secondary. The real victory was the way Kennedy transformed what was meant to be his undoing into a masterclass in resilience. Reporters left the courtroom not with stories of defeat, but of an unexpected triumph. As Kennedy exited the courthouse, the cameras swarmed him, but his words weren't for them. He turned to a group of young law students waiting at the steps, their notebooks clutched tightly, their eyes wide with admiration. "Don't let anyone tell you that justice is about who talks louder or who's got the bigger gavel," he told them. "Justice is about standing tall when the world wants you to kneel. Remember that, and you'll never lose, even if the odds are against you." And with that, Senator John Kennedy walked away, and not just a man who survived a trial, but a man who flipped it upside down, leaving behind a message that would echo far beyond those courthouse walls. Courage, integrity, and truth will always outlast the traps set by power.